March Madness is off and running, and the Big 12 is off to a hot start. Where does Iowa State fit into this whole thing, and what does this mean bigger picture? Those questions will be answered today on Locked On Cyclones.
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to you for being here every single day, making this your first watch or listen of the day. I appreciate it more than you know. Wherever you're watching or listening, be sure to subscribe so we can prove once and for all that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. Today, we are going to be talking about Iowa State in the Big 12, obviously in that group, but where does the Big 12 compare to other conferences in this March Madness tournament? What does Iowa State have to do with the Big 12? How can they impact each other? And then bigger picture, what does that mean, not just in basketball, but in general, how these Power Four conferences compete? Obviously, this is a big event that will go into that whole thing. Then we're going to break it down. Finally, we've reached the point where we're doing previews. Iowa State versus Lipscomb in the second segment, and then in the third, Iowa State versus Michigan on the women's side of March Madness. I can't wait to break all that down and more. But first, this episode is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy. Head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from. Need one now? Grab a 5-Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. Stock up today and stay energized. Ladies and gentlemen, we are officially in the middle of, well, not the dead center, but in the midst of March Madness. It has happened. Okay, we've gone through day one, and it was everything I could have ever asked for. Left, right, center, up, down. Crazy games. Okay, awesome endings. And unfortunately, this is not a college basketball show. You can go to Locked On College Basketball to get a full breakdown on everything. I know that they do it right over there. But we're going to talk about the Cyclones, and then therefore they're in the Big 12. So we're going to talk about the Big 12, and then the Big 12 is a conference. So we're going to talk about how the Big 12 compares to the other conferences, namely the Power Four. All right, let's take a look through day one of March Madness. Right, so only half of the first round has been played. Keep that in mind. The Big 12 is 3-1 at this current moment in time. Houston, Texas Tech, and BYU all picking up wins, in Kansas unfortunately falling. And then in comparison to other conferences, the Big Ten went 4-0. The SEC went 4-2, and the ACC went 0-2. And yes, I do know that UNC won a play-in game. I'm not really talking about that because it's not the round of 64, is it? No, it's first four, different thing. We're not gonna. They can earn a win if they win today, but they do not get a win for the first four. On my little, I made these statistics myself. I went through the scores and tallied them up. So what does this mean? Well, the big topic of conversation going into this tournament, of course, was the SEC getting 14 teams in. Oh, my goodness. The SEC is now a basketball conference. All right. Now, we own the football. Everybody knows that. But now we are also a basketball conference. We are taking that away from the Big 12. No. Okay, let's slow our roll here a little bit. Okay, let's take things one thing at a time. If by my count, 4-2 to 3-1, one is less than two. So the Big 12 has less losses at this moment in time than the SEC. And this isn't going to be an arms race per se. I'm not like sitting here just tallying them up as I'm going, but it was something that obviously got really, really loud going into this tournament, just how many teams from the SEC got in compared to the Big 12. And then the other side of it was the BYU seeding. And that's been something that has kind of a little bit been a bit of a pattern, hasn't it? Remember back in the college football playoff days just a few months ago when BYU arguably should have made it, especially after they dominated Colorado in the Alamo Bowl. I mean, there was certainly an argument there, and there was like hardly any consideration. So what I'm talking about here is the respect that the Big 12 has at this moment in time and what they can gain from a good showing in March Madness. And now that's where Iowa State ties in, because believe it or not, Iowa State as a 3 seed right now, in a weird spot, very much a tough spot. The most picked upset of a 3 seed in the tournament. I think it was, last I checked, like 9% of brackets were picking Lipscomb over Iowa State. And so the big thing here is not if Iowa State wins, this isn't going to move the needle per se. But if Iowa State loses, it doesn't look great. Okay, we just have to understand kind of the stakes that are at play here for the Cyclones going into this game. Now, does the complications of Iowa State impacting the Big 12 trickle down to the players? I would say probably not. There might be an element of some pride there, but at the end of the day, I don't imagine they're going out there saying, "Yep, we got to win this game for the Big 12." Like, I don't think that's what's happening. I do think, though, that obviously this team's going to play hard for themselves, and then that will trickle its way upstream. Okay, if Iowa State can win consistently, then that's going to look good on the Big 12, which in comparison to the other conferences is a great thing. Now, obviously, the SEC with 14 teams in, that's a lot of teams. They've played 6 of those, right? So there's 8 left by my math. I don't trust my math like crazy, but that sounds about right. And the Big 12 had 7 teams in, with 4 having already played. So Baylor, Iowa State, and Arizona yet to go out and kind of square off today. Excuse me. Baylor against Mississippi State, obviously of note because it's not like a super high low seed type situation. I believe that's an 8-9. So Baylor will, I believe in Baylor. I think they can get it done. And I'm not, it's, to me, I'm not going about this saying, well, this is the Big 12 versus the SEC. No, this is Iowa State versus Lipscomb. Okay, that's what this is. This is Baylor versus Mississippi State. I understand that. But at a bigger picture, I am completely sick and tired of the Big 12 just being disregarded. Okay, you want to talk about the ACC, you want to talk about pressure. Let's talk about Duke. Because now with Clemson and Louisville both losing first round, it's like, well, maybe the ACC had a down year. And maybe they did. Okay, maybe they did. But I don't want to hear that about the Big 12 because I've been hearing that all year. And at the top of the Big 12, right, with Houston and Texas Tech just broke a record for most 3 points attempted, which was wild. Basically had Steph Curry in the flesh out there as a Red Raider. But I digress. The top of the Big 12 with Arizona and obviously Iowa State is in that conversation, is in that conversation. It was very solid competition. You were playing tough teams every single week, and that's why an Oklahoma State can come out and beat Iowa State it'd be Iowa State on the road, they would be at home, or Kansas State can go on the road up to Hilton, right into Hilton, and take down Iowa State, a team that hadn't lost at home for I think it was 29 straight games or something along those lines. Very close to that number, if it's not that number. And so I think that success for the Big 12 in the tournament shows that the Big 12 is a solid conference as a whole. Now, that being said, like I said, I'm not like hoping the SEC loses per se, and I'm not sitting here with a tally mark like, okay, yes, the SEC lost one. All right. Let's go. Boom, knock it off. Like, no, I'm not doing that per se, but I am definitely keeping tabs on this because, like I said, we've seen Big 12 get kind of disrespected. The BYU situation now twice of importance, kind of. And I will say Iowa State, we've talked about it, got a pretty solid seed in this tournament. I felt pretty good about that. And maybe the Keyshawn thing had something to do with that. I don't know. I can't tell you. So I don't think it's all like, wow, woe is me, but I think it's something that you still got to kind of stand your ground. Okay. And so, yes, there are 5 other teams in the tournament in Houston, Texas Tech, Baylor, BYU, and Arizona. And then obviously Iowa State, outside of Iowa State, 5 more teams that have to hold up their end of the bargain to prove that the Big 12 is in fact a real conference. But the Iowa State, we can't be slipping up to Lipscomb it's a bad look. That's a bad look. And so this win, yes, it's big for the program. That's what we're really what we're focused about here. We focused on. We got to get Iowa State to a national title, to a Final Four, to an Elite Eight, whatever you hope. I know I'm hoping for a national championship. That's like priority number 1. But also, let's not embarrass the conference here. Let's go out and play ball that we know we can play, and not be that like, oh, look at Kentucky, or oh, look at Purdue, like these teams that get circled every year and get talked about, because the Big 12 is already struggling enough, it feels like, in multiple facets, not just in March Madness, right? The football one is where the SEC, I think, thinks that they really, really have this leg up. And I don't know if BYU getting in, right? Well, what does that do? And we saw what Arizona State did to Texas. So I would like this to become a little bit more of a level playing field. But I don't know what it's going to take to do that. But I know Iowa State losing to Lipscomb is not going to help that. There's just no way. You know what I mean? And so that being said, I think that's a perfect time for us to talk a little bit about Iowa State versus Lipscomb. What can we expect and what does Iowa State need to do? We'll talk about that more coming up right after this. We are all about the stats because numbers don't lie. And when it comes to the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X, the numbers are on an MVP level. With the ability to tow up to 8,500 pounds, it can quite literally carry the whole team, plus the gear, wherever you need to go. It's powered by a twin-turbo V6 engine, delivering the strength and performance to handle highways, back roads, and everything in between. And with room for up to 8 people, the Armada Pro 4X is built for big crews, big adventures, and even bigger memories. Whether you're exploring off-road trails or rolling up to the arena, the Armada Pro 4X brings power, versatility, and style wherever you go. Take your adventures to new heights in the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X. Learn more at nissanusa.com. Daylight savings snuck up on us again, and if you're feeling that lost hour of sleep, 5-Hour Energy has your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun, but sometimes you need a little boost to power through. Whether you're staying up late watching the NCAA tournament, like me, squeezing in around to golf after work, which I wish I was, or just trying to keep up with your busy day, 5-Hour Energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. I've been staying up late watching all the tournament action, I know that for sure, and the 5-Hour Energy is helping me stay awake the next day. With longer days, I love getting outside for a hike or a run when possible, and Tropical Burst is my go-to for a quick boost. Head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, and peach mango. You can even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack delivered right to your door. Need one now? Grab a 5-Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. They are everywhere. Stock up today and stay energized. All right, we got to talk about it. Iowa State versus Lipscomb, something that is on everyone's radar, especially Cyclone fans, of course. And you're here with Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I don't know what you expected, but it's time. We're breaking it down. Iowa State, Lipscomb, 3-14, round 1 of the NCAA March Madness tournament. It's going to be electric. I cannot wait. I really can't. I am super, super excited for this game. Currently, as it sits at this moment in time, Iowa State a 14.5-point favorite over Lipscomb. But it's definitely not a game that Iowa State can just move on from. Right? Look past. Let's just worry about who we got next. No. We are taking down Lipscomb first, and then we'll go from there. A couple comments from some media availability as far as Taman goes. TJ said, like, tremendous recovery. He's getting better each day. Practiced, a couple times. He'll be hitting the court. Feels like he's in a really good spot. And then this one I did like. I liked this quote from TJ as well. He was asked about the loss of Keyshawn, and he said, "Hey, look, Keyshawn's a competitor. He's done a lot for this program, a lot of contributions. That being said, we have had a lot of guys step up. Okay, and he started naming them and giving examples. Okay, and he's like Taman Lipsy, probably playing his best ball right now, right? Joshua Jefferson, dog. He didn't say that, but I know it's what he was thinking. Milan Momcilovic, okay? And he mentioned, like, offensively is kind of where we're seeing the biggest kind of like, step up to the occasion type of situation here. And I thought he was going to end at 3, right? Because, like, the rules of 3, the rule of thirds, right? There's all these, like, things with 3. I was like, okay, I guess he's going to stick with Lipsy, Joshua Jefferson, and Milan. Then he goes, and also Nate Heisey. And I was like, this guy probably watches Locked On Cyclones, saw the graphs, and he's like, you're right. Nate Heisey really has been stepping up for us, and I appreciate it. And you know what? I appreciate him calling out Nate Heisey and giving him a little confidence boost going into this game, because I really do think that he could be a key to a lot of success for this team in this tournament. Now, that being said, let's talk about Lipscomb first, then we'll talk about what Iowa State needs to do. Lipscomb, as I said, I believe earlier this week, tied for the regular season title, right, with North Alabama at 14-4 in the conference. They did have a better overall record, but in the conference, both 14-4, and then I'll give you the other names really quick, like Florida Gulf Coast, right, Jacksonville, Eastern Kentucky, North Florida, Austin, PA. Like, you can look it up. Okay, the ASUN is where Lipscomb is coming out of, but a few of those, like, obviously everybody knows Florida Gulf Coast. And then they go on to win their conference tournament as well. So pretty good team this year. Let's not get it twisted. Pretty solid showing. They did beat, it's pronounced Wofford, I think is how it's said. And they were kind of in a little bit of a dogfight yesterday. So, of note. Now, let's talk a little bit about their players. They got a few that really stand out. Jacob Ognosovich is how I'm going to say it. Ognosovich, 20.1 points per game. That's a lot. Averages 33.6 minutes, 8.1 rebounds, about an assist. Just wicked. Okay. I think he's 6'8" is his height. So let me pull that up really quick because I don't want to be wrong. And he is 6'8", also from Wisconsin, from Sheboygan. Awesome town. Will Pruitt, their second leading scorer at 13.2, 6 rebounds a game. And Joe Anderson at 12.5 points per game. You know, nothing too crazy. Obviously, there's going to be a regression, but Jacob Ognosovich is a legend. And those first three, the first four, and Powell as well, we know that Lipscomb is a three-point shooting team. It's going to be a little bit of a struggle for me to pull these numbers exactly, but I can tell you Ognosovich shoots 40.2% from three. Will Pruitt shoots 35%. Joe Anderson shoots 40.5%. And Powell shoots 37.3%. And these guys aren't shooting like a few times. They're shooting a lot. Ognosovich with 117 attempts, and that's the least out of the four. Will Pruitt with 140. Joe Anderson with 190. And Powell with 201. Okay. And 77 points, 77 three-pointers made for Joe Anderson is nothing to scoff at. So obviously defending the perimeter is something that Iowa State's going to have to do. Now let's talk a little bit kind of like a Venn diagram, right? We talked a little bit about Lipscomb. Let's kind of talk about the middle area, and then let's talk about just Iowa State. I've got some graphics that I like to look at come around tournament time. And one that, if you've heard of the Trapezoid of Excellence, but if you haven't, go check it out. It's an awesome graph. I'm looking at this right now, and really more than anything, it's just I'm looking at the pace. Iowa State a little bit of a faster pace than Lipscomb. Nothing too crazy as far as net rating. They're pretty similar in the grand scheme of things. Obviously, Iowa State a little bit higher, but relatively similar, like a Xavier to a Maryland, Xavier to a St. John's. About kind of to give you a frame of reference there. So that being said, it's what I'm really concerned about is the pacing. And the other statistic that I want to see go into effect here, and I saw this one, I found this one myself, is the amount of turnovers per game. Lipscomb ranks 14th in the nation with 9.5 turnovers per game. For reference, Iowa State ranks 195th at 11.9 turnovers per game. Why do I say that? I think that this is a game where Iowa State can just be bigger than Lipscomb, other than Ognosovich, who's huge. Just in general, a larger team. Okay. I think I saw that Iowa State was like the heaviest team potentially in the nation with a starting five or something like that. It was like a bunch of dudes just building corn and muscle. And so we just kind of assert our dominance in that fashion, but also smothering defense. And if we can get them off their horse and have them turning it over more than they usually do, not only is that going to actually affect the amount of possessions each side has, of course, but I think it'll also affect them mentally with like, oh, we aren't like, you know what I mean? It's kind of like a mental side of that. I think that would be a huge something that Iowa State can really use to their advantage. On top of that, I do think that the defense in general, Iowa State will be able to, I think they're going to make some noise. Okay. It's the smothering defense that is just like what we saw against BYU. And I think it was a 3-game stretch where they held their opponent to under 10 points in the first 10 minutes of the game. If Iowa State can come out and do that and just actually kind of score a few times and not go into the 10-minute mark with a score of 11-7, I think Iowa State can be in a really, really good spot here, and we don't have to be so concerned. Now, of course, like I said, I don't dive too crazily into those stats because it's March. It is, and things happen. Things go off the wire. Everything you would have never expected can happen. It's what happens in this month we love so much. So Iowa State's got to come out and really play their butts off. But I am confident. I think everything about this team Iowa State can get this done and we can move into the round of 32 and address that, obviously, when we get to that, because we don't know who we're going to play yet. And that's the beauty of this tournament. Now, that being said, we do know who the women are going to play, and we're going to talk more about that coming up right after this.
The NCAA Tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA Tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Iowa State will be taking on Michigan in the women's March Madness tournament. Obviously, the first round, it's going to get crazy. Okay, Iowa State, an 11 seed, Michigan, a 6 seed. And we saw some Iowa teams win as 11 seeds just yesterday. I'm talking about Drake. I'm like 99% sure they were an 11 seed. But if they weren't, let me know in the comments below. Pretty sure I just got done watching them. That being said, the women's side of this, this is a fun one. This really is. I do think Iowa State's playing about their best right now, and I think this is a game they can very much win. But Michigan's going to obviously push back a little bit. They don't want to lose either. So Iowa State, Michigan. Currently, the line right now is Michigan at 2.5-point favorites. So Iowa State slight underdogs. Michigan, we're going to talk about them in a second. The game will go down at 10:30 a.m., so be ready for that. If you're listening, this is the first thing you listen to every day, of course, here at Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So you're going to have to probably turn on the TV and get ready, get some pregame coverage, and then go check it out. Let's talk about Michigan. We've talked about them a little bit already, but like I said, lost to South Carolina, lost to Oklahoma, who's ranked, USC, UCLA, OSU, 3-game losing streak there, ranked 4-1-9. They beat Minnesota. They lost. I think they did split with Michigan State, who was ranked right around that 2021 mark. Lost to Maryland, then beat them later in the season when Maryland was actually ranked higher, and then lost to USC at the last game before this tournament. So, pretty solid team in Michigan. Ended up 6 games back of the regular season title at 11-7. But the interesting thing about this team is how kind of light they are. They run basically a 5-guard rotation. And so, this statistic here, they rank 33rd in the country in possessions per 40 minutes. And they do it with a 5-guard lineup just to really run up and down the floor. Now, I do think that there are pros and cons to this as far as the Cyclones are concerned. I think obviously Audie Crooks is going to have a major advantage on the inside. But Iowa State being a little bit of a slower team up and down the floor, I will be curious to see if they can slow down Michigan or if Michigan will run Iowa State out of the gym, right? It can go either way. You never know how the game is kind of going to actually pan out. But I do think that the huge just advantage for Audie Crooks on the inside is a great opportunity for Iowa State to walk away with this win. Their big center, Yulia Grabovskaya, she only averages 13.5 minutes a game. So I do think that Audie Crooks, we've seen her put up 40 points when opponents just basically refuse to to guard her. They just kind of she'll probably stop at some point. She can't do this forever. She can, and she will. So be sure you're looking out for that. As far as Michigan players to look out for, leading scorers, you kind of got 3 that stand out from the rest: Olivia Olson, Silas Swords, and Jordan Hobbs at 16.2, 16.1, and 13.4 points per game. As far as rebounding, they're pretty consistent across the board. I guess that's the product of having 5 guards on the floor. No one player standing out like crazy. All at the top 5, averaging between 3 to 5 rebounds a game. They shoot pretty well on average, right around 35 to 40%, with 4 players over 39.8%, 3 players over 39.8, and 1 coming in right behind that. So this is a team that can beat Iowa State. We're not playing, like I said the other day, like Southern, Kentucky Tech or whatever. No diss if that's a school. I'm just saying, like, those 16 seeds that sneak in because they won their conference tournament, generally going to be a little bit easier to beat than a Michigan. And obviously Michigan coming from the Big Ten, coming from, UCLA, USC, they've seen competition all year. So this is nothing crazy for them. Not to say that Iowa State hasn't seen competition. I definitely think they have. And I do think Iowa State is not necessarily underseeded, but better than their seed. I think that if they peak well, Addie Brown and Audie Crooks can make a ton of noise. And then obviously Emily Ryan and everything she's doing right now. And then you look at like maybe Sydney Harris, Kelsey Jones, like there are players out there on this floor that can really light this up. They can really make some noise and get a first round win. And what does that mean? Oh, that's huge. That is absolutely huge for these ladies. And of course, everyone remembers how last year ended. And I think that they're going to be looking for a little bit of revenge in this one. I think that this one is I think this is a very gettable game. Iowa State moving on as the 11 seed. I don't know how many people would take that in their bracket. But I think it's one that's, it's kind of like when we were looking at Drake and I believe they beat Mizzou. No, was it? I can't remember who they beat. Gosh, I just watched the game. But that game, it was like where it was Mizzou. It was like, should we trust Drake? Should we not? I don't know. I was in the boat of, yeah, Drake is, they're legit. They're a good team. And this is like Iowa State, good team. And they match up pretty well. They do. They're a little bit slower. Okay, but pace of play. It's not like this is the first time we've ever seen a slow team face a fast team. Hate to break it to you. Okay. And with the absolute dominance on the inside that Audie Crooks can bring to this, like, what are they going to do? Triple teamer? Okay. I think we'll be fine. And then what happens? Opens up Sydney Harris. Opens up Addie Brown. Opens up Emily. Like, that's the point. That's what we always talk about with double teaming anybody in any sport. Then you immediately gain someone who's open. So I do think Iowa State can find a way with the way they move that ball around, and especially kind of the hot streak it feels like they're on right now. It feels like this is the great time to get hot. This is the best time to get hot, actually, and it feels like they're doing that. It really does. And so I don't have the bracket up, and I really don't even need to, because who they face next at this point doesn't matter. But this is one that I think they should. Yeah, it's like, go get it for sure. Do it for the seniors, kind of thing. And in this team, I talk about them a little bit differently than the men's side, because I don't think anybody has national championship aspirations for this women's team. Now, we all hope that they win it, but I think we've seen from the season kind of like where the expectations lie. And John Calipari was talking about, with Arkansas, he's like, what I've done in the past doesn't matter. Like, my job as a coach is to make this team the best team they can be, and we're going to go out and make them feel like as comfortable and as good as they can out there to play the best game they can. And then he obviously whole coach talk, but I kind of draw that to this team. Like, let's just make this team the best team we can. Let's go make some noise in the tournament. Let's go have some fun. Let's go tear it up. Show that Iowa State is legit. I mean, everybody here knows that, but let's just show that the world kind of who Iowa State is. Remember, like last year when Audie Crooks took off, everyone was like, "Oh, who is this?" Remember, we're gonna remind them. And there was some elite company that Emily Ryan was put into when she took over that Big 12 assist record. I think it was Sabrina, plays in Seattle right now, and Caitlin Clark were the only other two that they had thrown out some statistics. It's like, okay, well, you're gonna probably want to learn that name too. So let's go get these guys out on a big stage, get a few wins, tear it up, have fun, play loose. This is a great spot for Iowa State to be in. You can play loose. You can absolutely play loose. I can't wait to see what happens. I am so very excited for this tournament. It's, in my opinion, probably one of the best times of the year. The other best time of the year is when you hit subscribe, because we're proving it's a Cyclone state. Until next time, Cyclone fans, sayonara.